Charles, a cry went out in the universe at 3 o'clock as if there was a disturbance in the force. People were upset that they did not get to see you closing in. How are you today, Charles?
I'm closing in. I'm really
Excellent.
doing really well. Thanks for asking. I hope everybody likes my shirt.
Yes, it looks great.
Oh, thanks. It's slightly
People have
different.
been commenting about your, kind of like vacation attire. I think people like to see you relaxing and enjoying yourself. We're going to be doing our normal broadcast now, time shifted to accommodate your time zone there, and people can be able to watch us discussing all this stuff in the First Amendment Forum on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Charles, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Looks like Donald Trump's going to be the next president. What's on your mind today?
Well, I think we could start. We'll have a lot of specifics to talk about in First Amendment Forum, but something that's not really terribly controversial, but I think is important to discuss, is the New Hampshire result. And to me, one of the reasons I left the Republican Party, the only time I flirted with the Democratic Party was when I was 18, and I quickly decided that was stupid. So, but one of the reasons I ran away from the Republican Party is that the leadership is gutless. You have this idiot, the former head of it, Michael Steele, who probably should have been a porn star with that name. He was a very ineffective RNC chair, and now he's down there at Stockholm Syndrome land, always on MSNBC as a supposed Republican panelist when he's probably to the left of Bernie Sanders. But anyway, these people are gutless. The idea that you would allow Democrats to vote in the Republican primary in New Hampshire is preposterous. It's just preposterous. That should not be permitted, and whoever allowed that to happen should be fired.
But isn't that the way that it's set up, that it's an open, isn't that the way it always works? They're just being jerks and doing it?
No, you shouldn't, if somebody is a Biden voter and, wants to vote in a primary to fuck things up for Republicans, that shouldn't be allowed, right? If you're a committed Biden voter, you haven't changed your party affiliation to independent, you shouldn't be allowed to vote in the Republican primary. Be that as it may, the results that are out, different estimates suggest that 70% of the people who voted for Nikki Haley were not registered Republicans. 70%, right? So she got 40-odd% of the vote. Take out 28%. She got nothing. Take out the people who just were engaged in a stunt. Take that vote out from her total. Take it out from the total, and Trump just demolished the field. And remember, this is a guy who did not engage in a single debate. This means that all the debates, all the people who are out there living in multiple mansions, ballyhooing about climate change, saying the world's going to end in 7 years. Nobody had shit to say about a process where countless cars drove hundreds of thousands of people to different events around this country. The venues were heated or cooled depending on the climate. The amount of CO2 released in the atmosphere by this debate process is staggering. And what did we learn from all that? From the $167 million spent so far on primaries, the people love the Trumpster. They love him. And they probably love him more for all of the stuff he's had the burdens he's had to shoulder during and after his presidency. They see a man he's got flaws. Who doesn't have flaws? So they see a man who bounded into the White House, who accomplished a lot in spite of his professional advisors, in spite of people like Jefferson Sessions and Jim Comey and Mike Pompeo and Bill Barr and all the other people who obstructed, and idiot Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, bitch McConnell, all these fuckwads who have been getting rich off their public service. He makes a tremendous amount of progress until Team Crooked decides to manufacture this COVID lockdown and use that as an excuse to change election procedures so they can stuff the 2020 ballot box. People see right through this. The polls that have been conducted that are out there show that a substantial percentage of the American population of both parties believes the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. And then yesterday, King Puddinghead gets up there in Virginia at his event, to say the dictator in training, Aviator Dementia Joe, gets up there and refers to Terry McAuliffe as the real governor of Virginia. It's okay for the president to say that and, quote, joke about it, but you got these January 6th protesters rotting in a crooked process, and you've got a lot of people canceled for daring to suggest that there were reasonable problems with the 2020 election. We have the testimony recently of a Dominion expert who, in front of the judge, and basically hacked the machine.
Isn't that great?
It's fantastic. Well, I mean, it's great and it's bad. I mean, we are too timid as a nation. I'm not suggesting violence, but just as Trump got up there last night, America time, and demolished Haley's effort to try to walk to the podium, or ridiculed, rubbished her effort to go to the podium early on before the final vote tally was analyzed, and say that she won when she got crushed.
Charles, hang on a second. Let's look at this. So you've just brought up something that should be, banner headline front page news. So Law 360, which I really should pay for because there's always things on there that I want to see, but I think it's part of a very expensive subscription. This is not the type of thing, unless you're a lawyer, and even if you are, this is expensive. A lot of people don't have that. Courthouse News, this is kind of a dumb blog, but it just says details emerge in Dominion security trial. I mean, it should be this. Expert shows how to tamper with Georgia machine. So it says here, security of Georgia's Dominion voting put on trial. That's from the 9th. I mean, this should be headline news everywhere, and they're trying to hide it from everyone.
Right. And so that's why it takes persistence. I mean, we go back to this country, myself included, we're lazy. We want the answers fed to us. We don't want to do a lot of work. We want the headline to explain, what we might learn by reading the story. We want the first 250 words to give us an excellent summary. We don't want to read all 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 words. And that's why so many demagogues in both parties, and even unaffiliated demagogues, make a living. I mean, here you have a reprehensible and irredeemable piece of shit, Al Sharpton, right? Doesn't pay his taxes. He's got an MSNBC gig. He has the fucking gall to say that that he was disgusted by Tim Scott and what Tim Scott said about Trump. Standing there, Tim Scott, of course, being the senator from South Carolina, whose life story is quite interesting. But he's basically this piece of shit turd, with a stapled stomach and in fancy suits and living large, having ruined the lives of many people, including Tawana Brawley and Stephen Pagonis, going way back into the 80s, when this fat turd falsely accused somebody of smearing this Tawana Brawley with shit and leaving her in an alley somewhere around Poughkeepsie, New York. It turned out the whole story was invented. Tawana Brawley made it up. This asshole made it up. The lawyer working with him made it up. And this guy still is in the public sphere, this Al Sharpton. He belongs on a fucking cardboard box in Washington Square Park with Methuselah. That's where he belongs if he's not in jail. And yet the editors give this guy, and the suits at MSNBC give this guy a platform.
Oof.
It's not as if...
Oh, my God. Look at this picture. You can see his deodorant coming through. This guy is a damn slob. It's unbelievable. But I'll tell you what, it does look like he paid for a dentist's swimming pool with those veneers. It's amazing.
It's not as if America in 2024 is South Africa. 13% of the population is black, according to the census. 13. Okay, it's not the case that the 85% of America is black, and there's this elite of white of Casper the ghosts are keeping the black community in check. The average person, the poor people and poor blacks in America are far better off economically and frankly politically than they might be if they were in South Africa. South Africa is teetering on the bridge on the brink of collapse. And this race hustler has lived large for decades. He's full of shit. He has damaged so many people, not just blacks, but so many vulnerable people. And he just, he's like Joel Osteen, the evangelical grifter,
Yeah.
the white evangelical grifter. It's just
Charles,
the black version.
We've got a great comment here from Deb Mom, and I think she might be onto something. Tawana Brawley looks like Will Smith in drag. Look at that. She's right. Well, this might be, we got to get Shepard Ambellis involved in this.
That's hilarious.
It is.
That is funny. But anyway, so this New Hampshire result, I mean, the way I believe politics works is that the big money around politics is not stupid, right? Nobody's writing, a 4-digit check because they like somebody, right? Rich people don't like to burn money any more than poor people may like to burn money. So, and rich people the reason they're rich is they tend to be careful with their money. So, Nikki Haley is basically finished as a Republican. Absolutely finished.
This headline is a little bit out of line.
That's great.
Reid Hoffman pulls out of Nikki Haley after pounding.
Yeah, that's a disgusting thought on many different levels. But the point is that that Haley does not have a prayer, and she's not going to do well in Nevada, which is I think the way they pronounce it in Nevada, not Nevada. And in South Carolina, she's going to get smoked in her home state. So what has she decided to do? She gives that ridiculous bullshit, as Trump called it, speech, where she tries to claim that she won. She trash talks against Trump and dares him to a debate. Why should he debate Nikki Haley? I mean, he may as well debate our friend Methuselah. There's no point, right? She's an idiot.
Do you know what I feel like is going on right now, Charles? Whether it's like high school or college or some celebrity or something, there are just some people who are cool and who can do things. And maybe there's somebody who's the star of the football team or whatever. And then there's somebody who's like, damn it, I'm going to do that. And they come to school dressed up as whatever, and it's just not working. Like when Microsoft tries to release a Zune to compete with the iPod or a Windows phone to compete with the iPhone, and they're just not cool. Trump is the prom king, and no matter what they try, it just makes them look stupider.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, I suppose you could run Snoop Dogg, but there's somebody like that, or maybe more
different.
Snoop Dogg with Martha Stewart, but
that would be a successful ticket, actually, better than anything the Democrats have right now. And Snoop Dogg would be actually pretty tough on foreign policy. I bet he could stare down some terrorists pretty effectively.
Yeah, when he wasn't high, which would be very few.
He gave up weed, Charles. Snoop Dogg has sworn off weed. And then something bad happened to his daughter. But we're getting off track.
Cancer or something. Yeah, cancer or something.
Yeah, like a stroke, I think. But she's really young. Let's see what happened to Snoop Dogg. His daughter doing a little bit better after a stroke. See, I mean, she's like 20-something and she had a stroke. This is super unusual.
Yeah, not good. But just staying for a second, though, on this whole, what this means for the race. On the one hand, you have Trump is the nominee, right? And barring, which we don't wish, even on Biden or on Democrats, we don't wish any kind of violence or physical harm. But barring, a health emergency / violence, Trump is going to be in the election on November 5th. And in contrast, what they say about normal primaries, and of course the Democrats are having primaries, right? They've denied Bobby Kennedy a chance. This is the party that wants to save democracy, but by denying Democrats a chance to democratically select their their candidates for office in these primaries. So normally, if you're going to have primaries, what happens is that the Republicans run to the extreme right and the Democrats run to the extreme left. Why is that? Because in primaries, many people just don't vote at all in generals. But in primaries, a lot of people just say, fuck it, why am I going to do this? Doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. So the turnout is very light in primaries. And to get people excited, you have to go to your extremes. And so I would understand why people on the right now would be, all MAGA. I get that. That said, I think MAGA, to people who would dare to say it's a problem to have a slogan, "Make America Great Again," just put the dunce cap directly on any critic of that. How can you be against?
They have the
making
America kill baby
Huh?
slogan. They're on the kill baby side of the argument. They want to, have long-term abortions. Charles, did you know that Joe Biden was a write-in candidate in the?
Yeah.
And Dean Phillips, who nobody heard of before Laura Loomer started arguing with him, he came within, he's like doing better than any of the other people except for Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah. So the point here, though, is, on the left, here, this idiot, President Puddinghead, who really is just, history is not going to be kind to him. As Trump said, before, he was saying that you could take the worst 5 presidents in American history, add them all up, and Biden has done more damage than the 5. Now he's saying take the 10, right? So yesterday, Puddinghead gets up there and he makes his real campaign, his first real campaign event, be all about saying that when he's president, when he's reelected, and he has control of both House and Senate, he is going to codify Roe v. Wade, including allowing women to have an abortion up to the date of birth. Now, many people in our audience probably have not had children, but one of the things that really changed my mind about the abortion issue was when I saw the first amniocentesis. That back then it was 2D, not 3D. I think it was 10 weeks. I believe it was roughly that many weeks. And that just changed my life, my whole perspective. I'd never seen anything like that. And, you could debate. Some people would say that, it's really killing a baby at 2 days. That would be an extreme view, I think. The way abortion law works now, I believe, there's an outer limit of anywhere from 12 to 20 weeks in a 40-week gestation period. For somebody to argue, as with children and grandchildren, maybe it's based on his experience raising Hunter, but it's a fair balance of the issues to go from where we are now, where we were with Roe v. Wade, to a place where a woman, I suppose, would have the right to terminate a pregnancy as she was giving birth, is preposterous. It's a preposterous, inhuman position. And that's his position. And so he thought he was going to get all kinds of cheers for that. Instead, his speech was interrupted by some count 14 times by left-leaning pro-Palestinian people who were shouting at, calling him Genocide Joe. So that's what you're dealing with. There's no enthusiasm for this fucking team of morons to get reelected in 2024. The only way they could do it is if they rig the election again. Now, they're certainly trying to rig the primaries again, and they must believe they can rig the general again. Otherwise, there's no good reason to keep this team. You got, what's that phrase, arsenic and old lace?
That was a play.
A team here of arsenic and leprosy in Biden and Harris. If Joe doesn't kill you, I will. Now, how can Charles, you be enthusiastic about this?
You can't. But it's actually, we've been remiss because we have failed to discuss with people exactly why we've selected this tribute to one of my all-time favorite Three Stooges things, which is a 3D short called Pardon My Backfire. Here, we've got the three douches, and their pardons may backfire. You were laying out earlier, and we're going to discuss this in depth on the First Amendment Forum. You were laying out a very well thought out, rather complex sort of strategy that you're anticipating there might be several pardons coming, and it plays into the whole precedent set by Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon preemptively. I think people are going to find it fascinating. We're going to be talking about that in just about 10 minutes, but we've got another 5 minutes here, Charles. What else would we like to explore in that time?
Well, I'll just give an overview because it's going to take more than 5 minutes, so some people can begin to sniff around the issue. When you think about the team that is nominally in control of our government right now, you need to understand that these are not simply liars who are lawyers. These are, in the main, litigators. And in my experience in business with large law firms, is litigators don't really care about right versus wrong. They care about winning versus losing. And their mindset is, you know, if you've got a client who's in trouble politically, delay the bad news until after the election. That's the way they think. And if you can win on a technicality that might erode the standing of this country, erode belief in our system of justice, who matters? You win, you get paid. Nobody cares. And so there is, I think, when you look across the Democrat field, they've done themselves no service backing this idiot, both into the White House and now potentially into re-election. They have not done themselves any service. What they've done is, you know, can you name a 40 to 50-year-old Democrat other than Gavin Newsom, who is out there and could rise into prominence in Democrats? Bernie Sanders is, you know, he's like that whatchamacallit, that Seinfeld episode where the personal trainer's really old and then his father comes. That's Bernie Sanders. I mean, he could be in Curb Your Enthusiasm on a walker, right? I mean, so forget him, forget Pelosi, forget Schumer, forget Durbin. You go down the long list of people who are powerful, and they're really, on the Democrat side, there's not somebody coming to the forefront. And B-Rock thinks that, you know, he can continue to control the executive branch and the whole government from one of his many mansions as he waits until the world gets wiped out because of climate change. So you've got this situation here where they've got to have somebody in the White House 2024 forward who can continue to cover off the many crimes that have been committed by people in both parties going back decades. They got to have a reliable puppet in the White House. The only reliable puppet I can think of who has a possibility of getting across the line is Michelle, Maxie the Moocher, because she's no Minnie. And you could clearly, I mean, she was in the White House when B-Rock was there. There was a blog called, I think, we mentioned this guy, Ulsterman, and whether it was true or false, these were rumors coming out of the Secret Service that B-Rock, you know, would get up at the crack of 11 in the morning, disappear, watch TV, and, you know, most of his work was done by other people.
Wow.
I wouldn't be at all surprised. You know, I wouldn't be at all surprised by that, given, you know, his resume is thinner than Cloudy and Gay's, right? I mean, name one piece of legislation that B-Rock sponsored in the Senate. Name one. Right? He probably, you know, maybe he got a post office named for a friend or something like that. But I mean, it's just, he didn't really accomplish much. The Obamacare thing is a disaster, an ongoing disaster. His interferent meddling policy around the world, a disaster. His financial policies, disaster. So maybe there are people who believe that you could, on the heels of Cloudy and Gay, who some would argue, I wouldn't be one of them, was unfairly bounced out of Harvard because she did what many other people do and passed work off that was not hers as her own. You know, you're going to have a hard time post Cloudy and Gay trashing Michelle Obama. and you're going to have to tread very carefully on that. The question is, who would she pick as a vice president? There are not enough food tasters on the planet to allow her to pick Hillary Clinton. So it's not going to be an Obama Clinton ticket.
Didn't you mention before Eric Holder? I think that would be, for them, that would be good. For the United States, it would be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Holder is right. I mean, he's more educated than Al Sharpton, but he's right up there with the most despicable demagogues on earth, let alone, just in the United States of America. But, he's a reliable tool, right? He protected Obama while he was Attorney General. He appointed a sucker, or he got Loretta Lynch, another protector in there. So you could have, maybe it's Obama and Lynch, but you could see. Well, you could see. Remember, it's the hard left that's going to be discussing the election, right? From Labor Day through November 5th. We're not going to have. Who cares what Jonah Goldberg has to say? Frankly, who cares what Bret Baier has to say?
Oh, Charles, sorry, I'm looking at the time and we're out of it. I can't remember if we spoke about this executive order where Biden implemented this European Union U.S. data privacy framework, but Eric Holder is a judge in this court. We'll talk about it in just 5 minutes when we make our way over. It's going to be less than 5 minutes now, but people are going to be able to join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. Crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. I'm sorry to cut in like that, Charles. I just looked away from the time. And of course, subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be right back, everybody.